Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, damas y caballeros, welcome back to my channel. My name is still Edgar Cisneros, and today I have a project for all you Jeep owners that like big tires, a lot of traction, and like standing on the skinny pedal. We're going to be welding the axle tubes to the center section, the pumpkin, the cast. Now, why do you want to do something like this? Well, let's take a look at some pictures.
Looks like my buddy Crawlin Campbell on Instagram was having a good time, but there's a problem. Look at where the rear pinion is facing. Yeah, that's a pretty good amount of carnage right there. The axle tubes have spun inside the center section.
That can happen to any one of us that like taking our Jeep off-road. The axle tubes are simply pressed into the center section and have rosette welds or plug welds in this example, around the axle tube to hold it into place. Sometimes that just isn't enough, especially when the plug welds are, let's just say, below ideal quality or almost non-existent. There are several ways to get this task accomplished, but I'm going to show you how I get it done here in the garage. I've had great success using this process, so let's get started.
There are a few things that I want to do before playing with fire, like drain the gear oil so I can remove the lube locker to protect it from potentially getting it burnt up. Now, if you don't have a lube locker and have regular RTV sealant, you can leave it on there, but the edges of it will get burnt up, and most of the time it will not leak, but it's a good time to do a fluid change and new RTV. I know this axle needed it. Since I am working on a Rubicon Dana 44, there's a few other items I want to protect, like the locker sensor and the actuator connector. What I do for the locker sensor is I pull it out and completely disconnect it from the wiring that comes from inside the housing. Then I use this exhaust heat shield tape that I got from AutoZone. It was about $15. Now what I do is I just wrap up the wiring and I stuff it back into the housing. Then I get another piece to cover up the hole and protect the mounting surface, followed by reinstalling the bolt to protect the female threads. The actuator connector is very similar. You tape it up, and I actually ended up wrapping it up with the thumb portion of a stick welding glove for added protection. To clean the axle tube, I used to use this Dremel tool with this standing pad attachment, but since I got my big air compressor, what I use now is this angle die grinder with a sanding pad attachment, and this sanding pad is key because you can get in between the axle tube and the center section to remove that gunk. I know cleaning sucks, but do not skimp out on this part. The cleaner the material is now, the better the outcome will be. Well, theoretically speaking, right? And I clean my material to about this state here. Now that is pretty good. I'd weld that up.
The next step after cleaning your weld zones is preheat. Now, there's a couple ways that you can preheat your material, so let's go over a few of them. The first one on the list is the oxyacetylene torch with a rosebud attachment. If you don't have the rosebud attachment, you can get by with using the cutting attachment, but ideally, heating, cutting, done. The next one is the funnest one to use because it's the closest thing that you can get to a flamethrower, at least around here, and it's a weed burner. You get this weed burner at Harbor Freight, at Lowe's. I got this one off Amazon, and the only thing that it needs is it runs off of a 20-pound propane tank that you may be using on your barbecue grill. So the initial cost, if you don't have this yet, would just be the actual weed burner itself. The next one I want to go over is something most of you guys probably already have in your garage, and it's a map torch. It's pretty low cost to get your hands on one of these and pretty easy to use. Now, I don't want to show the propane version of this because the flame on the map torch is a whole lot hotter than the flame on the propane torch in this style. So let's get started.
I'm going to be using this Everlast 200 STI, and we're going to be burning up some of these Weld Coat Nickel 55 332nd rods. I got these through Amazon, and that tube there was approximately 1 pound. Now for amperage, I'm going to start off setting the machine at about 75 amps. To monitor the temperature of the base metal, I'm going to be using this General Tools infrared thermometer that I got for 20 bucks at Lowe's. My goal for preheat is to bring up the base metal to a temperature of anywhere between 400 degrees and a minimum of 350 degrees. I also like tackling this project doing one side at a time. That way I don't have to worry about keeping up with the temperature on both sides of the axle, on both the axle tube and the center section. Now for welding, I like starting off placing 4 1-inch tacks evenly spaced around the axle tube. The sequence of these tacks is after you put your first 1-inch tack, you go directly across the axle tube on the opposite side and you place your second 1-inch tack. Your third tack goes in between 1 and 2 right in the middle. After you place your third tack, your fourth tack goes directly across number 3 in between 1 and 2. I know that's really specific, but this helps avoid having a whole bunch of distortion on your axle. If I lost a few of you guys, here's a picture of how I lay out my tacks. After placing those tacks, what I do is I weld between them using the same pattern, making sure that I weld all the way into those tacks, making sure that I don't leave any craters because craters create cracks. Make sure you're checking the temperature as you go. That way it doesn't fall below 350 degrees. Just add some heat as needed. I ended up putting a 3-pass weld on this side of the axle because that first pass kind of sunk in that gap between the axle tube and the center section. So I decided to add some more reinforcement by adding 2 small stringer beads on top of that. And I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Here's how I stacked those 3 stringer beads. Once I finished the weld on this side, I wrapped it up with a fiberglass blanket. You want to do this so the cool down is as slow as possible and uniform. I love it. Now, the second side is almost identical to the first side, except I decided to not put a 2 stringer bead cap and replace it with a small weave. Now, I didn't do this for a particular reason. I guess I just wanted to see which one looked better. And again, once you're done welding the second side, go ahead and wrap it up with that fiberglass blanket. You get these blankets pretty cheap at Harbor Freight if you need one.
Yeah, it's pretty warm underneath there. We're going to leave the axle wrapped up as is until the axle is cool to the touch. It may be a good 8-9 hours until it's cool. So what I was just doing is whenever you get close to that time, come back out here, lift the blanket up, stick your hand in there, see if it's hot or cold. A couple of things that I would not do is force cooling the axle down. For example, grabbing some shop air, blowing it on the axle, helping it cool down faster. I would avoid doing that because it tends to bring out cracks. All right. Now, another thing that I would avoid doing, especially if your axle is still underneath your Jeep, is putting a load on it while it's hot. Right. You want to let it cool down without any load whatsoever, and then once it's cool, you can go ahead and put it back, put a load on it, and then drive it out. Right. That wraps up this project. Thanks for watching this video. I know there's a ton of videos out there on YouTube, and you guys decided to watch this video. That's pretty awesome. If you guys have questions or suggestions on future videos that you would like to see, leave it in the comments section below. If you guys like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you guys have somebody that's about to tackle this project, share it. You never know, it may help them out. And again, to stay up to date with the latest videos, I have a few cooking here. You may like them. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Did you really think I was going to end the video without showing you a close-up of what we just finished? Let's take a look. The axle is now cool to the touch, and this is the side where we put those 3 stringer beads. Not bad. I mean, I need to get more practice on my consistency, but there's nothing major that's wrong with it, like any cracks on it. Now let's look at the second side here. This is where I put that weave in there. Again, not bad. I need to practice on my consistency, right? There's a tie in there, but still there's no cracks, and it's good to go. All right, I'll catch you on the next one.